This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the second hour of our program. On the line with us, our buddy Phil Ittner, the veteran war correspondent, typically based out of Kyiv, Ukraine. Right now, he's here in the United States. His video blog is over at YouTube. Philip Ittner is all you need to know to find it. PhilipIttner, 6 letters in each name. And Phil, welcome back to the program. I'm curious your thoughts on the impact and consequences of the Republicans now refusing to fund further aid to Ukraine, and the fact that Orban's people were meeting with Republicans yesterday and the day before in Washington, D.C., and they're claiming that they're going to block Ukraine aid in the European Union. What the hell's going on here?
Yeah, this is not good news, and it's not being received well back in Ukraine. I've been in contact with people while I'm here in New York to their reaction as to, firstly, what happened during President Zelensky's visit to D.C., which was disheartening for many, especially after Speaker Johnson's, his statement of, like, we need to know more about what victory will look like. Well, President Zelensky has articulated quite well what victory looks like for Ukraine and how to achieve it. That's willful on the speaker's part of ignoring that. Right. And the fact that they're tying it to, it was a bad faith statement, willful ignorance, and an indication that this is no surprise to the Ukrainian, but that U.S. domestic politics are being now embroiled in a war where people are dying daily. They are losing. I am in contact with people in cities like Kherson, in Odessa, Kharkiv. Of course, I'm not in touch with people in Avdiivka, but Avdiivka is going on, that massive battle there. So every day Ukrainians are losing their lives, and they see from D.C. This internal squabble about border issues that is going on with this squabble between the GOP and the Democrats. And as I say, every day people are dying. So as a Ukrainian, you could easily understand where their frustration lies. Of course, they're grateful for the aid that's already come, but they are making progress on the battlefield. There is a clear path to a way to, at the very least, deal some very serious damage to the Russians, if not actually, force them to recognize that they cannot win in Ukraine. That is achievable. And if you listen to military experts, both internally within Ukraine and in the wider world, that is an accepted opinion. I mean, it is manageable. So to have them draw U.S. politics into this when they are when there is light on the horizon and there is a possible path towards victory. They were heartened. A lot of my friends in Ukraine were heartened to at least hear President Biden when he was with Zelensky say that the U.S. actually supported a Ukrainian victory. Heretofore, there's been a lot of talk about we're going to stand with you until the end and this kind of thing. But they were very frustrated because there wasn't this language of, we are going to help you win. We are going to help you defeat the Russians. And so that little statement by President Biden of we are with Ukraine, to see a Ukrainian victory, that was well received. But a lot of the other stuff was not. And of course, the fact that money is being withheld or has been withheld, that's a continued frustration for Ukrainians as well. As far as what's happening on the other side of the Atlantic with the European Union and Orban is becoming a real problem for the European Union. He is an outlier. There are other individual groups that are out there in a lot of different NATO or EU countries that are voicing concern about continued support for Ukraine, but it's really Orban that is the center of gravity when it comes to at least a more sympathetic ear towards Russia and a desire to end the conflict, no matter whether Russia benefits from their illegal and war of aggression and colonial aggression. So I'm hearing a lot of talk in the within the European sphere about what to do about Orban, because Orban internally, domestically, within his own country, has diminished civil liberties. He has broken with some of the major tenets of the European Union, which are required for membership. He is becoming a major question, and what to do about Viktor Orban is becoming a much more vocal discussion. They don't like the fact that he is, taking this very aggressive anti-Ukrainian position. There was a clash. There was a tense conversation between Zelensky and Orban when they met at a European conference meeting. When the cameras were on, and we don't know what was said, but just by sheer body language, you could tell that Zelensky was expressing his displeasure to Orban. So
Orban's become Putin's
these are all major issues.
I mean, this is as have a bunch of Republicans here in the United States, and I just find it absolutely shocking. Phil, entertain my paranoia here for a moment, or maybe talk me down. About 2-3 months ago, I noticed that basically live reporting from Ukraine had just stopped on the television screen, or at least the screens that I was watching, which was CNN, MSNBC, occasionally the big networks. It just stopped. It looked to me like all the big news agencies must have pulled all of their serious reporters out of the country. Then came October 7th and this whole mess in Israel, and virtually all reporting about Ukraine just went to zero. Is it possible that 3-4 months ago, when the news media just basically started their blackout on Ukraine coverage, that the senior executives in the news industry heard from the GOP that they're going to go with Putin instead of with Ukraine, and now might be a good time to get your people out because the country's going to fall? I mean, is it?
Well, there's a lot to talk about there. There are some points that you are expressing that are 100% valid. I am not sure about the warning that Ukraine is about to fall, because that's not the case. Ukraine is in a very solid place on the battlefield. Some have expressed it as a stalemate. I don't think so. I think actually, especially with them having now gotten troops onto the left bank of the Dnieper River, which gets them within spitting distance of severing the land bridge, which will be an existential threat to Putin and to Russia's sense of identity as empire, because Crimea is a cornerstone of their empire, as is most of as is a huge chunk of Ukraine, which they have lost and lost forever. And if they can sever the land bridge, that will, be brought home. It will be inescapable to the Russian people. And the Russian people can suffer losing their soldiers and their young men. And I'm sorry to say this cynically, but they'll accept the loss of hundreds of thousands of their young men, but they will not accept the loss, in my opinion, of their pride and their history. They went through 91 and the embarrassment of the collapse of the Soviet Union. Many of those people are still alive, and to see a defeat like losing Crimea and Odessa and all these satellite areas which they thought were firmly ensconced in their sphere of influence, that will be another embarrassment and an erosion of their sense of self again as empire. So it's not the people who are dying; it's their pride that will bring Vladimir Putin down, in my opinion. Yeah. Now, as far as the press corps is concerned, you're absolutely 100% right, and it's shameful. It is shameful. I spent 25 years in the news industry. All the networks are gone. Everybody has decamped. I went up to the about 2 weeks after I returned after Thanksgiving. I went up to the Intercontinental Hotel, which was the hotel where the press corps was basically ensconced. That was their base of operations. And I spoke to people working there, and they said, no, they've all left. All the press corps has left. It is shameful. I cynically believe that it is also a financial decision because, of course, in Israel, the most of the networks news organizations have infrastructure, whether that's an office and a bureau and a car and a fixer and a driver and all the things that they need, but they have to invest in Kiev. They're spending tons of money. So cynically, I think that there was a financial decision to leave, and that's a great disservice to the news and keeping Ukraine on the front pages, which is where it belongs, because it's one of the most important historical events that is happening right now, and probably will be one of the most significant historical events of all of our lives. This is a inflection point moment. Do we go towards autocracy and what Putin has to offer, or do we stick with, as flawed as it is, the system of liberal democracy?
Right, and this is the choice that Putin is now offering the world.
This is the alternative. This is exactly. Yep,
and shockingly, Republicans. I mean, my dad's old Republican Party. Let's go fight the Vietnam War. I'm just aghast, Phil. I don't.
I mean, you and me both, Tom. I find it very depressing. I find it shameful. I have to apologize to my Ukrainian friends and colleagues. You're right. There was a time when the GOP would champion anybody who they felt was, a Jeffersonian democracy, even to the extent of doing some really awful, illegal things. Now, this is a just war. And where are the GOP? Where are the Republicans? They're siding with Putin.
Yeah. It's criminal. And it needs to be called out, and it needs to be called out explicitly in those terms. And our media is not doing that either. Phil Ittner, brilliant. You can follow his blog his video blog over on YouTube. Just plug in his name, Philip Ittner. Phil, thanks so much for dropping by.
Always a pleasure, Tom.
Good talking with you. And also, you can follow Phil on Twitter at IttnerPhilip. We'll be right back. It's 17 minutes past.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Trump is putting together his blueprint to Christianize the American government. Seriously? I'll tell you about that after the break. And welcome back. Howard in Oglesby, Illinois. Hey, Howard, thanks for watching us on Free Speech TV. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. You had talked earlier about the Supreme Court picking up Jack Smith's appeal and just leapfrogging over the middle court. Mm-hmm. And you got some concern about thinking that they're not going to rule in Smith's favor, and understandably so. I'm one of those guys that has to think for a minute. Okay, they picked this up while the ink was still wet,
right?
From Jack Smith. And I thought, well, it's going to go one of two ways. You've got the McConnell picks on the bench. They're not Trump's. They signed up. What did they sign up for? Because this is bigger than Nixon, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I'm inclined to think that they're going to rule in favor of Jack Smith.
I think so, too.
Okay.
But I'm not certain. And that in and of itself should be shocking,
Absolutely, because in normal civilized the political world, you can pretty much guess and be correct about which way they're going to rule on this, rule on that. But in this time in life, it's like, I don't know what they're going to do. So I thought two things. The good and the bad. The good to me is that Jack Smith gets his way, and they rule that no one's above the law.
Right.
Brett Kavanaugh wrote something 25 years ago to that effect.
I know.
So he's part of the picks. So do they draw the line? The ones that are uncertain. I don't trust Clarence Thomas. Never will. Alito's questionable. But those three picks that McConnell appointed while Trump was around was, I just sensed them looking at Mitch or Trump saying, hey, we gave you Roe. We're not going to give you this.
Yeah.
But the other side of the coin was, why did they pick it up so fast? Are they so diehard, loyal to, let's say, Trump, that they're trying to influence any court around them and rule against them? They've got some...
Because they want him back.
The Leonard Leos, the Harlan Crows, these are ruthless people that are, nothing's going to stop them. They'll just regroup and go at you again.
Yeah, no, you don't get to be a billionaire by being a nice guy.
No, you got to step on a few toes. But I'm thinking, if they have conscience, I'm thinking that they're going to rule in favor of Jack Smith. Now, just a quick question. Does that affect the lower court? Because they picked up the appeal, too.
If the Supreme Court precedes the lower court, then the lower court just drops the case.
Their point is moot either way.
Right. If the lower court rules before the Supreme Court, then if the rulings are consistent with each other, they both stand. If there is any area of conflict, the Supreme Court has priority.
Okay, so the ruling coming from the Supreme Court is going to be the final say. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. They are the final court of appeals. And
every time you turn around, you think, okay, that's it, and then boom. Here comes some other shenanigans of politics.
Yeah.
No, we can appeal this to that, blah, blah, blah. So, fingers crossed.
I agree. I was looking for the impeachment clause in the Constitution, but I'll have to find it another time. Howard, thank you for the call. Spot on. Yeah. It's, we're all, I guess at the moment, with regard to the Supreme Court anyway, we're all just kind of, visitors here. We're just tourists. We're just watching. Spectators. We'll be right back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So Vivek Ramaswamy, during the first Republican debate, was laying out his vision for America. And by the way, he was the number 2 guy in the debate, according to the Washington Post, in which he was arguing that we should basically do away with all of our federal agencies. Really, virtually all of them. Just shut them down and make them go away. He's not the first person to argue this. David Koch, running on the Libertarian ticket in 1980 for vice president, was arguing the same thing. He had a long list of federal agencies he wanted to shut down. This is not an uncommon thing among billionaires, and Ramaswamy is a billionaire. They basically want to take America back to the 1920s, before we had what they call the welfare state. And if they do so, they will turn America into a failed state. They want to make America into something like Haiti or Libya, and that would be a disaster. There's a whole article about it that you can read all the details. It's titled, "Is Vivek Ramaswamy a Different Kind of Republican Cat?" at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. And welcome back. What is going on here? Trump is putting together his blueprint to Christianize the government. Seriously. This is how you get preachers all over the country to advocate for you, even when you cheated on every single one of your 3 wives, even when you pay porn stars for sex, even when you're good friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and et cetera, et cetera. But MSNBC's Sarah Posner is pointing out that Trump's Project 2025 agenda has an emphasis on, quote, Christian nationalism. She's the author of a new, or not a new book, it came out a year before last, Unholy, How White Christian Nationalists Powered the Trump Presidency and the Devastating Legacy They Left Behind. And she writes, whether Republicans like Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota, whatever Republicans like Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota may claim, Donald Trump was not being funny about governing as a dictator. We know he meant it because we saw he did what he did in his first term, including after his 2020 loss. We also know he's not joking because he has an army of right-wing activists who are bent on carrying out their own authoritarian agenda for the Christianization of the federal government, especially at the Department of Health and Human Services. She notes that this is all in, the Heritage Foundation's Leadership 2025, the Conservative Promise blueprint. And in the Heritage document, she says, Severino, this is, a Trump ally, makes clear that punishing blue states remains a key goal. He wants to cut off Medicaid, for example, to states like California that allow abortion. This is an authoritarian agenda. There is just absolutely no doubt about it. Which raises the question, why is it that CNN gave an hour last night to Vivek Ramaswamy to talk on live television and just spout lies. He basically did a town hall where he was answering the questions of people in the audience. Oliver Darcy is the guy who is now the new media critic over at CNN and CNN's Reliable Sources newsletter. And he just went after CNN for helping, quote, helping to legitimize the dishonest GOP presidential hopeful who has spewed dangerous lies and injected poison into the national discourse at every chance. Why is CNN doing this? Now, CNN is saying, well, he had enough support to make it into the debates, so, we feel an obligation to invite him to come on TV and make his pitch to the American people. But some people are saying, why would any major news network help to validate such a preposterous figure by putting him on the stage and allowing him to infect the public with his conspiracy campaign? Handing Ramaswamy, this is from CNN's own guy, handing Ramaswamy a microphone and putting him on stage affixed with CNN's iconic branding to answer audience questions helps validate him and provides oxygen to the menacing wildfire of delusions he has pushed into the public discourse. Yeah. They put Donald Trump on, too. I think there's a stronger case to be made for that, frankly. But still, Vivek Ramaswamy is one slimy cat. I'll be back with your calls on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's the place where smart people get their news. I'll be back with your calls right after this.